You're standing in a grocery store holding a jar with one word on the label, Paleo. It promises to feed you the way your ancestors did. Steak, bacon, eggs, no bread, no grains, no sugar. It's a $40 billion idea built on one sentence. Our ancestors ate meat. There's just one problem. They mostly didn't. In 2012, researchers scraped the fossilized plaque off a Neanderthal's teeth and found something the diet books never mention: cooked grains, roasted vegetables, medicinal plants. The reason the paleo diet gets it wrong isn't a small detail, it's the whole picture. To know what someone ate 40,000 years ago, you can't ask them. So scientists ask their teeth instead. Every tooth carries two records of a life. The first is chemical. Carbon and nitrogen come in slightly different weights, called isotopes. Plants lock in one ratio, fish lock in another, and meat sits somewhere in between. When you eat, those ratios get built into your bones and your tooth enamel, and they stay there long after everything else is gone. Archaeologists at the Max Planck Institute can grind a sliver of a tooth, run it through a mass spectrometer, and read the diet off the numbers. The second record is physical. Dental plaque hardens into a yellow crust called calculus, and it traps tiny pieces of food while you're alive. Starch grains, plant fibers, even pollen, sealed in stone for tens of thousands of years. Karen Hardy, a researcher at the University of York, pioneered pulling those grains out and identifying the plant they came from. Put the two records together, and a picture appears. Not the picture on the menu. Across sites in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, the same pattern keeps showing up. A lot of plants, a lot of variety, and meat as one part of a much bigger plate. One study of teeth from the site of Spy in Belgium estimated the plant share of the diet at well over half, 60% in some samples. Think about what that means. The animal at the center of every paleo ad was, most days, eating like a forager. In the hills of northern Spain, there's a cave called El Sidrón. In 1994, two men exploring the tunnels found a human jawbone and assumed it was recent. It wasn't. It was 49,000 years old. The cave held the remains of 13 Neanderthals, 7 adults, 3 teenagers, 2 children, and an infant. Their bones were scattered through a single chamber, mixed together in the dark, and almost every bone carried cut marks. The marks were made by stone tools, the kind you use to strip meat from a carcass. These 13 people had been eaten by other people, but the same team that studied those bones did something else. They scraped the calculus off 5 of the teeth. Antonio Rosas and Karen Hardy ran the analysis, and what they found rewrote the menu. One individual's plaque held no meat signal at all. Instead, there were grains of starch from roots and pine nuts. There was wood smoke baked into the plaque, the chemical fingerprint of cooking over fire. And there were 2 plants no one expected, yarrow and chamomile. Both are bitter. Both have no real food value. Both are still used today to settle a sick stomach. This Neanderthal, the researchers argued, was self-medicating. On one of his teeth, they even found penicillium, the mold that gives us penicillin. A man who would die 50,000 years before antibiotics had the source of one pressed into his own teeth. He ate roots and nuts and bitter medicine. And when he died, the people around him ate him. And El Sidrón isn't even the strange end of the spectrum. Go to the southern coast of South Africa, to a cluster of caves called Pinnacle Point. There, the diet wasn't roots and nuts. It was the sea. 164,000 years ago, people sat on that shoreline cracking open shellfish, brown mussels, sea snails, whatever the tide left behind. Curtis Marean of Arizona State spent years excavating the layers of shell they left. Some of the oldest evidence of humans eating seafood on Earth. This is tens of thousands of years before anyone planted a seed. And these foragers were already eating like coastal villagers. Now go north to Gough's cave in England, 14,000 years ago. The people there butchered red deer, horse, and each other. Researchers at the Natural History Museum in London studied the human bones. The skulls had been carefully cleaned and shaped, the edges trimmed, the bases knocked out, the surfaces smoothed. They had been turned into cups, drinking vessels made from human heads, the same diet, stretched across 100,000 years and 2 continents, kept showing the same 3 things: plants mostly, seafood often, and sometimes each other. Not the steakhouse on the poster. So go back to that jar, the one with a single word on the label. The honest version would be harder to sell. It would be most of a plate covered in roots, and greens, and nuts you can't pronounce. A handful of shellfish, a little meat, when there was meat, and a footnote no label will ever print, about the days the food ran out and the line between dinner and the people you knew got thin. There was never one caveman diet. There were thousands of them, shifting with the coast and the season and the year. The word on the jar tells you exactly one thing for certain: that we would rather have a simple story than a true one.